Good morning. This is Gene here, and I hope that you're having a wonderful morning so far, and I hope that your week has gone well. I want to share with you a story out of 2 Kings chapter 6 and 7. It's kind of a long story that I hope will encourage you in hope in the Lord's provision, but also challenge you to think about what you should be doing in this time, and especially in loving those around you. So, in 2 Kings chapter 6, we read about Ben-Hadad, who's the king of Syria, and he has siege on Samaria, the northern kingdom of Israel. And so he's got a tight-fisted hold on him. And they've gone into a time of famine, and it was really severe. In fact, one lady walked by the king, and she calls out, "King, oh king, help us." And the king says, "Look, if God doesn't help you, what can I do? I'm just a man. If God's not going to help you, then you're out of luck." And she says, "King, you don't understand. Last night, me and this other woman, we made a deal, and we said, today we'll eat my baby, and tomorrow, then we'll eat yours." And she agreed. Now, who does this? I don't know, but it should come to no surprise that the next morning, the other woman magically decided, I don't want to eat my kid, And so this lady's frustrated. She's crying out to the king, and the king's like, what on earth has gone on? Like, how bad have we gotten? This is lower than buying up all the toilet paper. That's the kind of panic we're in. And so the king says, look, God judge me if I don't have Elisha the prophet's head on a pike, by noon. Not quite like that. I'm being a little exaggerating, but he wants Elijah's head, the prophet, because somehow it's the prophet's fault because God hasn't delivered yet. So he sends his messenger to go get Elijah, and the guy comes to Elijah and says, look, even if God opens up the windows of heaven, it's impossible for God to deliver, okay? You're coming with us. And Elijah's like, look, God's going to deliver. He's going to provide. Not only is he going to provide, you're going to see it, but you're not going to taste it because you're going to die. And at the end of the story, the dude gets run over by the people running out to get all the good stuff. Now, we'll get to that in a second. So here we have a hopeless situation where the city, they've got no food, everything's winding down, all right? The situation seems impossible, and they've all lost hope in God. And then chapter 7, we meet 4 new characters. We meet these lepers. They're outside the city. Now, lepers were unclean, okay? They couldn't be around you. They had to keep a distance. At different times and places, they'd have to call out leper, unclean, and people would throw stones at them. And they were just mistreated and scared because this was an incurable disease and no one wanted it. So here are these guys on the outside, and they're looking and they go, if we go into the city, we'll probably die with everybody. They've got no food in there. But if we go to the enemy camp, we may have a chance to get some food and we may live, or they may kill us. Either way, we're going to die. So our best chances are to go to the enemy. Just like the city, these men have no hope. This is what we have. These are the cards we're dealt. We're just going to die. There's no trust in God in this passage other than what Elijah says. Everybody's like, God can't do this. These guys didn't say that, but obviously they think that because they're not like, God, deliver us. Now, they have an incurable skin disease, so maybe they're a bit like, if God didn't help us then, why would he help us now? So they go over to the enemy camp, and when they get in there, they find something very interesting. Nobody's there. You're being surrounded by a ghost town. You got to feel pretty dumb about that, right? Nobody's in the enemy camp. And then we read in the text what actually happened was, that night, God caused the army to hear the sound of many horsemen and chariots, an overwhelming army coming. And they thought to themselves that the Israelites had hired the Egyptians and the Hittites to come make war, and so they ran. They left their tents, they left everything. They just got up and ran away because they were so scared. So when these lepers get in, they go into the first tent, nobody's there. But there's food, there's water, there's everything that you need. And so they gather it up real quick, and they go out and they hide it and they bury it, because these people know what it's like to be in tough times, and they're not going to waste. And so they go into the next tent, and it's the same thing. And tent after tent, it's just good. It's just nothing but good. Here they've had all this rough time, and now they have blessing in excess, and they're excited. But as they continue to pillage the empty tent, the empty camp, they realize that this is wrong. In fact, they say to themselves in verse 9 of chapter 7, we're not doing right. This day is a day of good news. If we're silent, and waited until the morning light, punishment will overtake us. Now therefore come, let us go tell the king's household." Here are these men who are outsiders. They've been ostracized because of their illness, consigned to die, and they went from having nothing to having everything. They went from being in the same situation to now being a time of excess. And as they went through stuff, their first idea became, look, we can't continue to just do what we want to do. We can't continue just to eat up everything. Here we have so much, and we know there are people who are suffering. We need to go do what's right. We can't just sit here with our excess and be glad that we're safe and secure when we know there are people who are hungry and are starving. So the story provides two things. The first thing that the story provides is the fact that God will move in an impossible situation, that even when you feel it's hopeless, God will move and God will provide. But the other thing is a call for us to take what we have and to provide. Imagine if these men never go tell Israel that the enemy is gone. They just continue to enjoy. People die from famine while they live in security. What would be the good of that? Some of us have good news. Some of us could say the good news is we still have our jobs. We still have money coming in. While we know that other people, the cupboards are getting bare, they don't know how they're going to make their bills, they don't know how to feed their kids. How can we, when we're in a good place, thankful for what God has given us, not then remember that if God has given us good, that then we're to give that good to others? That we should take the good news of His provision for us and share that good news with our neighbors. To keep our eyes out, because we know how God has protected us and saved us in a difficult time. But other people need that same thing. And so God really gave these lepers a chance to provide for their neighbors who often rejected them. They got to be heroes in a sense, because they took the gift that God had given them and they shared it with others, realizing that if God had given them this gift in a time of need, it really wasn't just for them, it was for the people around them. Yeah, I would tell you that sometimes we wonder about why do people in other countries starve, or why are they hungry, or why is all this going on? I think sometimes the truth of it is, it's maybe because I don't care enough, because I have my excess. I sit with my extra wealth, and I sit with all the things that I have, and I don't think enough about if God has given me this good, I need to give this good to others who are less fortunate. We get too caught up in building up our castle walls and building up our security funds and our extra resources. And we miss the truth that if I have extra, it should be a call to give. Will it come at the cost of my security? I'm sure it did for the lepers, because once they tell everybody there's food in the camp, guess who's going to be on the outside? The lepers. They're not going to be able to go in. They're sharing this good news at a personal cost. If you share the extra that you have, you're going to have less. Maybe that worries you. But if you're somebody who knows that God provides, and in the difficult times God saves, you know the right thing to do. And James tells us if we know what's right and we don't do it, then we sin. If you have hope today that God will see you through an impossible situation, and you have extra, or you have the ability to help somebody, go help them. Let us keep our eyes out for the needs of our neighbors, for the needs of the people in our churches, for the needs of the people in our communities. Let us not let this be a time where we become tight-fisted, but where we become open-handed with the gifts that we have, so that God can use us to continue to be a light in the darkness, to bring hope in a world that definitely needs hope and good news. If today you have the good news of having more than you need, or just more than enough, and you have the ability to help somebody, or you see someone in need, don't hold back. Trust God and take what you have and give to others. Remember, Scripture says, he who sows sparingly reaps sparingly. He who sows generously reaps generously. And time again, we see Old Testament, New Testament, the picture that when everybody gives, the one who gives much did not have too little left over. The one who gave little still had enough. That if we all give according to what God has given us, not only will we be able to help others, but we'll be just fine because God will take care of us. Know that God can help you in an impossible situation. And please have the heart to take your access, the good news of God's blessings that He's given you, and share them with those who are in need. Let me pray. Father God, I thank you for the gifts that you give us. God, I thank you for the love that you have for us. God, I thank you for just the blessings that we have that allow us to be able to serve. God, I know that in this time, some of us have more than others. Some of us have more to give away than others. I pray that we'd have that mindset, God, that when there are needs that you reveal to us, and Lord, that we would give trusting you, knowing that in this time, my good news should be somebody else's good news as well. God, that you would give us the opportunities to love others, to serve others, God, and shine a light for you in this world. God, I pray that people will be encouraged and have hope, knowing that you can and will move in the difficult and impossible situations, God, that life is not hopeless. And God, I pray that your church would be a light to that truth. God, that we'd be able to be your hands and feet in this world to give people the hope of not just your provision, but of your Son, Jesus. We thank you for all that we have, and especially we thank you for everything that we have in Jesus, in whom we have our great hope of salvation and the greatest truth and greatest example of the fact that you deliver us, and God, that you will provide for us in all things. In Christ's name I pray. Amen. You guys have a blessed day, and I'll see you next time.